Hey y'all. So during part one, I focused more so just on covering some of the main story beats concerning some of the transitions and some of the uh, pivotal moments in my journey. On this session, I want to spend a little bit more time talking about some of my interactions with other mystics and some of the other supernatural stuff that was going on throughout my journey. Um, and also, right, just getting ready for Mystic History Month, which is next week. I kind of want to just talk about some of the other mystics that were helpful at certain points in my journey or that I learned from or worked with, right? So I mentioned that I go to heaven pretty much every day. That's just standard process of my life. And I've been doing that since either 2017, 2018. Um, the one that I learned that from is Dr. Bruce Allen. Now, the first person that I ever heard have face-to-face encounters or um, have encounters of going to heaven was actually David E. Taylor. Now, hey, say what you will about David E. Taylor, but he was one of the first to inspire me that a face-to-face relationship was possible and it was normal, that you could see the Father, that you could see Yeshua. And even to this day, many of his revelations are one-to-one to some of the direct encounters I've had. So, hey, but the person I actually learned how to do that from was Dr. Bruce Allen. Now, he had a book and he had this teaching that he used to do called Translation by Faith, which is just by faith, decide to go into a place and let your spirit do the work for you. And I remember the first time I tried this, I stood up in my office and I took a step forward into heaven. And I remember I slammed flat onto the floor and completely overwhelmed in power. I was like, all right, this is nice. And that kind of became the foundation of me shifting into the spirit and going into other places and translating around the world and having these types of experiences. I learned that from Dr. Bruce Allen. The first person who mentioned the seven spirits, though I disagree with some of the actual conclusions of it, but the person I heard the seven spirits from first was Prophet Sadhu Sundar Selvaraj, a friend of Bruce Allen, right? He had a book called On Wings of Eagles and Doves that I used to read when I was in high school, which prompted me to go and seek the seven spirits myself and have my own encounters with them. In fact, I spent a week, I want to say it was the December. I want to say it was December of 2019 was when I actually had my first encounters with the seven spirits, where I took out a week from my time. This was after I got out the military. I took a week I took out a week and I pretty much dedicated one day to the Spirit of the Lord, 2 days to wisdom and understanding, 2 days to counsel and might, 2 days to knowledge and the fear of the Lord. And I got to have face-to-face encounters with each of them, giving them a chance to introduce themselves to me, show me their operation, show me their realms, show me their importance, receive impartation, receive teaching for the first time. That happened December 2019. In fact, I journaled about some of the specifics, and a lot of that made it into my book, Fullness Guide to Sonship and Mysticism. But it was Brother Sadhu who actually introduced the seven spirits to me through his teachings. And even though I disagreed with some of his conclusions, that was still where I started. One of the major confirmations that I got was after I started having experiences in the spirit world myself, and I started looking and actually traveling in different worlds and traveling in different dimensions. About a year after I was already comfortable doing that, I came across a book called Visions of the Spirit World by Sadhu Sundar Singh, and his description of the spirit world and its operations was almost one-to-one what I was experiencing, and it's from 100 years earlier, right? Sadhu Sundar Singh was a contemporary with Smith Wigglesworth, who lived in India. Powerful guy. He was going to heaven 10 times a month bodily. He was eating food in the heavens. He was healing the sick just by his presence. Powerful guy. If you've never studied him, I recommend it. In fact, I've done a article on him for Mystic History Month a few years back. Now, when it came time for me to actually try to learn how to operate in the supernatural, again, I grew up Baptist, so there was none of that. I had to go where I could go. Of course, I mentioned God's Generals was very inspirational, but I learned a lot from, or at least I tried to learn a lot from Apostle Guillermo Maldonado, just because he was one of the only people who had trainings for the supernatural at that time. I learned a lot from Apostle Jonathan Ferguson. His books, Prophets 101, Apostles 101. I remember when Gloriology was just a class. Now it's a book and a class. But he was one of the few people who was talking about some of the dimensions of the spirit, the operations of the anointing in the ways that I was seeing and the way that I was seeking. So he was actually very influential in that early part of my life. When it came time for me to learn deliverance, casting out demons, and living a demon-free life, of course, there's Pigs in the Parlor by Frank and Ida Mae Hammond. I read that, the Deliverance Manual by John Eckhart. But the preacher that I actually learned a lot from during that time was Apostle Alexander Pagani. And understand what I mean when I say this. I don't mean it that dramatically, but this is the only way I know to say it, is that I helped him write his first book when he wrote Secrets to Deliverance. Let me explain what I mean by that. I remember back in the day, before he wrote that book, he used to go live on Instagram, and he used to have us ask him questions and give feedback while he was working on the book. And I used to be on those lives all the time. I'm like, oh, talk about this. Oh, say it this way instead. We were all on there. So I'm not in any way trying to take credit for his revelation. I'm just saying I was there during that time. Like, that's early Pagani, before he got popular, back when they were still picking on him because his last name had the word pagan in it. So powerful, right? I love Apostle Pagani. He's one of the things I like about him is that in a generation, in a time period where it's hard to have heroes and it's hard to have favorites because they keep having scandals, Apostle Pagani has stayed scandal free his whole ministry, and I like that about him, right? But I learned a lot from him during that time. There's a bunch of videos he deleted, especially because that was the Periscope time. There was a bunch of stuff on Periscope. There was a lot of stuff on Instagram Live, and some things he deleted, some things he said he was going to upload again and never uploaded again. He deleted a bunch of stuff, but I learned a lot from Apostle Pagani back then. I used to watch his deliverance videos all the time, and it was in watching the mechanics of what he was doing that I learned how to operate in the spirit too. Let's see. Someone who I actually received impartation from, but I was already raising the dead. I had already done 8 dead raisings before I've met this person. I want to preface that I didn't get activated by this person, but they were still heavily influential in my life, and that was David Hogan. I met David Hogan back in 2020. He came to my region, and it was close enough to where I lived, where I went. And I respected him because, again, he was also experiencing the same translation experiences, and he was experiencing, healing the sick and raising the dead and casting out demons. And he was bilocated. So me and him were having the same experiences. I'm a teenager, so nobody cares about me, but I liked him just because he was having the same encounters I was having and was bold about it. He was honest about it. And I remember we met each other back in 2020. He laid hands on me, and I felt fire in my chest for like 3 days straight. So while I was already raising the dead before him, I still enjoyed the inspiration that he was, because at that time, I want to say he had done 38 dead raisings by that point, but his team as a whole had done close to 600. They were almost at 600 back then. So Yeah, definitely benefited. My grandpa, Benny Hinn, right? Um, I used to watch Benny Hinn and Catherine Kuhlman and A. Allen videos on a repeat because I was trying to learn how to do miracles, and I learned how to use discernment while watching videos so that I can tap into the mechanic behind the operation of the spirit. So um, Benny Hinn was heavily influential. And I call him my grandpa, not because he knows me, but because he mentored one of my mentors, Apostle Napoleon Williams. He sat under him for a period of time. And I pretty much got to benefit from that grace almost directly, right? So I've learned how to do a lot of the same things as Pastor Benny, like how to feed into an atmosphere, how to pray for people and release impartation from a distance. That stuff is fun, but Pastor Benny has always been an inspiration. In fact, one of my favorite messages from him, really the only message I listen to by him, is about the 3 dimensions or the 3 levels of the anointing. That's one that inspires me on a level because he talks about so many other generals and the levels and dimensions that they were operating in and the cost of the. I love that message. Um, so let's see who else. So between February of 2020 and February of 2022, I actually worked with Ian Clayton 2 years straight. I was a teacher on his platform within his Discord community, right? I helped manage his community, and it was fun. It was me. At one point, it was just me and Nina Hayden. Some of y'all know her. And then eventually we got a few other mods to help out. But yeah, that was my first time getting around other mystics who also were either going into the heavens or were okay with other people who did and were trying to learn, right? So that was first time being around other mystics. And yeah, like I worked with Ian for 2 years. Me and him talked on the phone just a few months ago. So as far as I know, we still get along. Of course, anyone who knows me and knows Ian knows that we disagree on a bunch of stuff theologically. I don't know if he knows how far or how much we disagree, but I love Ian either way. But yeah, like I benefited heavily just from the community itself. Like I enjoyed being a teacher on his platform, meeting all the different mystics, talking with him behind the scenes. Mike Parsons. I met Mike back in 2020. He, right before the pandemic, we were one of the last stops he had before the UK completely shut down and they were unable to go anywhere. He had came to Texas. I'm from Texas. I'm in Texas, by the way. And he had came to a ministry that I used to work with, and we were his second to last stop before he went back to the UK for like the next 2 years. But meeting Mike in person was a different experience. The way he catered to an atmosphere and worked with the angels in the rooms and revelated and all types of other stuff. Also, the fact that Mike Parsons doesn't look as tall as he is on video. And I was surprised that he was almost my height. I'm 6'4", by the way. So I benefited from Mike Parsons. He had some amazing sessions that from some years back. Yeah, Mike Parsons was definitely beneficial in my journey. Let's see who else. I'm trying to think because I don't want to leave people out, and I'm trying to be honest here. Dr. O, right? Dr. O, one of his books or book series, Hashemayim, one of the best, if not the best book or books concerning the tribes of Israel. I love that book. He had verbiage for revelation that I already carried, but his way of putting it together was phenomenal. So props to him. I also love one of his series. Is no longer on YouTube. He took it down, but he did a series called Priesthood and Prophecy right after the 2020 election because he had got mistreated for saying Trump wasn't going to win that election. And afterward, he did a session talking about where people went wrong because they were trying to force God to align with their politics instead of speaking on behalf of God. And that it was like a 3 or 4 part series he did. I think only part 1 is still on YouTube. So even on the flip side, right, after leaving organized religion as a whole and living by the Spirit, living from the kingdom, living from the heavens as I do now, there are few people I consider peers, as in equals. One of them being Apostle Daniel Wasanga from Kenya. That's my brother. He's like the only person that when me and him talk, we're talking from an equal playing field. I'm not necessarily having to teach him nor him having to teach me. We actually just get to talk. And considering how lonely my journey as a mystic has been, I enjoy getting to talk to people where I get to talk to them as an equal. We got some work that we're doing together. In fact, I'll be with him and a few other people next month in September. We're doing have like 10 days of crusades we're doing out there. Might be 11. We're working on a few things. But yeah, for those of you who are in Kenya, especially near the Nairobi, Kisii area, we're going to be in Nairobi for about 3 weeks next month. In fact, I'll pull up you can get the information for everything off my website, caveofmystery.org. Of course, I'm going to share the flyer at the end for those who are interested in some of the dates, or those of you in the Houston area, because that is my area. I have some events coming up that y'all might want to come and fellowship in person for. Yeah, so Apostle Daniel Wasanga, Apostle Vincent Poole, he was amazing when it came to understanding the living letters. I mean, not the living letters, understanding the Hebrew calendar. There's Ptah Seeker Asar when it comes to understanding the Kemetic calendar. Baba Hiru, me and him talked a lot. I still call and check on him every now and then. He's up in his 80s. He retired recently from making what he calls joyari. It's his rings and necklaces and stuff. But yeah, I learned a lot from talking with Baba Hiru, or more so, similar to most, he affirmed a lot of the things that I was experiencing. Some of these supernatural encounters that I was having, he shared that he also had many of them too. He'd had some face-to-face encounters as well, seen some beings. So even within the Kemetic culture, that was amazing. My brother, Wayne Chandler, I call him my mentor. He don't like being called that because Wayne chill like that. But Wayne Chandler, me and him check in and talk every few months or so. Yeah, one of the best people on the planet. It's good to have people that are comfortable where they are and are completely grounded. Someone that actually understands the discipline of the spirit. Another brother I consider a peer, Kepra Ptah. I've done a few sessions. If y'all have seen Metatron Codes Part 1 or 2, yeah, Kepra Ptah did a fantastic job. That's my brother. We talk all the time. Now dealing with people that I learned from a little bit too, right? Because most of my learning is done in the spirit. When I'm studying down here, it's confirmations or verbiage more so than it is new information. And I learned a fair amount from Billy Carson and from Bobby Hemmett, just because they were outside of the Christian world. But the things that they were teaching, for the most part, still fell within the kingdom range, right? And kingdom and Christianity are not synonymous. But even though I disagree with sometimes how they get to a thing, or sometimes their final conclusion, about 80-90% of what they say are things that Holy Spirit or Yeshua or someone had already told me. So yeah, I appreciate people like Billy and Bobby. But yeah, if I didn't mention your name, don't feel bad. I'm trying to cover 11 years of work, 11 years of growth, Yeah, a few of y'all gonna fall through the cracks. I love y'all though. But these have just been some of the people that I've worked with, that I've benefited from, that I've learned from, who were helpful at certain parts of my journey, people I know now, people who I used to be close with. Yeah, all of that, right? So, yeah, so if any of you who I mentioned see this video, thank you. But I don't think y'all will. It's cool. So here is the flyer for this upcoming trip. Like I said, this is my itinerary for this month and, well, this month, next month, and October. Right? We have about 10 days of ministry in Kenya. And I have 2 courses coming up at the beginning of October, or at least starting at the beginning of October. I have a conference. I'm going to be in Florida. Yeah, more information for this stuff is on my website, caveofmystery.org. And also, truthfully, if you're interested in working with me, just reach out via my website, caveofmystery.org. Information's on this flyer. Now, I also want to share this, right? Like I said, we're going to be doing a mission trip while we're out there, really getting some stuff done that can benefit that region. So if for any reason, and again, this is not mandatory, but if you're interested in donating or giving to help us be of help and assistance to that community over there, we're going to be in Kenya, mainly the Nairobi region. The more money we have, the more we can pour into the region. Not to just give money away, but to actually come up with some long-standing resources and really give them the highest quality of ourselves while we're down there next month. So if you feel led to, or you want to give or donate to that trip, these are some of the ways that you can give. And yeah, thank y'all so much. Right. This is it for this session. I love y'all. Until next time, y'all be blessed. Later.